With learning Norwegian, a huge thing is the pronunciation of the vowels and the words. I think the reason at the beginning the reason they knew so quickly that I was American because I wasn't pronouncing things correctly. I remember every day practicing the vowels over and over and over again, just the same thing. And I thought it was pointless, but now I see how beneficial it is to really pay attention to the small details. There are a few like grammatical differences as well that are different. They're different than English, but they're easy to learn. But it just takes repetition, patience, and a lot of faith that you can do it. But yeah, a huge thing is to speak up and not be afraid to make mistakes, because if you don't speak, then you will never learn Norwegian and you can't be an effective missionary. So making those mistakes and getting that humility is really important in becoming an effective Norwegian speaker.
What is it?
To be humble, I think going into my mission, I was so excited, and I felt like it was going to be an adventure. I didn't expect, how do I explain it? I just didn't expect how much of a challenge it was going to be for me to completely let go. In my life, I've been able to, work really hard at something and see the benefits, and it was something personal that I was doing. But with missionary work and with learning Norwegian, it had to be something that I just completely relied on the Lord for. And that does require a lot of humility and faith, and so much patience with yourself and with your mistakes and your shortcomings.
It seems really intimidating because it's closer to Finland, the country is, and everyone hears about how hard Finnish is. So when I got my call to Norway, everyone was saying, "Oh, you're going to have such a hard time learning that language." But in reality, I didn't feel like it was that difficult. Obviously, learning a new language is hard no matter what language it is, but there's a lot of similarities to English, and it's a Germanic language. And so if you have any connections to German, learning Norwegian won't be as difficult. The grammar is different than English, but it's not as difficult as you may think. It's very simple. There's very few rules, but the one rule, or the few rules that they do have, are pretty easy to mess up. And so as long as you focus on learning those basic rules, then the grammar is not that hard. The hardest thing about learning Norwegian is the pronunciation. It's very easy to speak grammatically perfect Norwegian, but sound 100% like an American. And that's one thing that a lot of missionaries struggle with, is getting the pronunciation right. So they'll understand you, but they'll know right off the bat that you're an American, and that's something that most Norwegian missionaries, especially that are American, get frustrated with, because we all want to master the language, but getting those pronunciations things down is really hard. And one of the reasons for that is that there are so many dialects in Norwegian that they just tweak the pronunciation just a little bit, that it's hard to master one set of Norwegian dialect. But that's one of my favorite things about the Norwegian language, is the dialects, because depending on how someone speaks, you can understand and determine where they're from. So the west coast of Norway, you can hear a lot of like the guttural, like scarring of the R's, and then in Oslo they roll the R's. That's kind of the general thing, where you can tell at least what part of Norway they're from, and that was really interesting to see. And a lot of Norwegian missionaries try and pick up some of the dialects, and that it becomes a fun game to see, what missionaries are learning what dialect, and it's fun because we can all understand each other. It's not different enough where it's a new language, but it's just different enough to make it unique, and I thought that was really fun.
The language in itself is, to get like the words and everything like that, it's Germanic language, so it's not super hard, but the pronunciation and to sound like you're from the area is so hard, because it goes up and down, and it's a very sing-songy language, and American or my English is just flat and monotone basically, but there's like every word you have to go up and down and pronounce it in a different tone and everything like that. So it's super hard to sound like you're from there. For me at least it was, but to get like the words and like the correct grammar isn't terribly hard. I've heard a lot of my friends that served in other countries had a lot harder time with the grammar. It was a lot more intense than Norwegian. But just the cool thing about the language, each town you go to will have a completely different dialect. So sometimes it'll be like learning not a completely new language, but a completely like different part. I had served a year of my mission in the capital in Oslo, and then I got moved to a city called Stavanger, and they have like a completely different dialect. Like the word for I in Oslo is jeg, and the word for I in Stavanger is egg. And basically every word will end differently and pronounce differently. Like in Stavanger they're very hard on their R's. They're ach, and in Oslo they'll ar. So it's like the whole, like I had been there in Norway for a year and I was getting real confident thinking I knew the language, and then I got moved over there and I had a junior companion and he had to translate for me because at first I had no idea what was going on. Like I couldn't understand a thing for the first like week I was there, and then I started to pick it up that there was just subtle changes in the words. As for just like normal sayings, like to say bye, you say hadde. Like you usually say like bye, have a good one, ha det bra. Bra is good. Hadde is just like have it, is what it directly translates to, but that's how they say bye. So like to say how's it going, there's a bunch of different ways, but the most common one is hvordan går det? Where's the bathroom? Hvor toaletten? Toalette, not toiletten. It's just, you never say bathroom, you say toilet. They think that's weird if you say bathroom. Bathroom's baderom.